My name is Cassidy Brennan, and my brother is currently explaining to his new girlfriend why I am the family's greatest disappointment. He does it with a kind of practiced, pitying sorrow, the same tone one might use for a beloved pet that never quite learned to fetch. He leans forward, his hand covering hers on the polished mahogany of the dining table, a gesture of intimate conspiracy. "She tried the military thing for a bit," he says, his voice a low murmur that carries perfectly in the sudden lull of conversation. "But it wasn't for her. Washed out." He doesn't look at me. He never does when he tells this story. He doesn't know he's speaking to a commander in the United States Navy. He doesn't know that the government job I hold is providing direct intelligence support to SEAL teams in undisclosed locations. He doesn't know that the reason I'm so quiet is not because of shame, but because I've spent the last decade of my life in places where silence is the only thing that keeps people alive. He just knows the story he wrote for me, the one that makes him feel better about his own choices. I hold my wine glass, the crystal cool against my fingertips, and watch the condensation bead on its surface. I let the lie hang in the air, another ghost at this Thanksgiving feast. The smell of roasted turkey and my mother's sage stuffing always did this to me. It wasn't a pleasant nostalgia. It was a tripwire, yanking me back through time to a cold concrete floor and the smell of gasoline. It was 10 years ago, almost to the day. The air in the garage had been sharp with the impending New England winter, each breath a small white cloud of failure. My duffel bag, packed with the few things I thought I'd need for officer candidate school, sat by the door like an accusation. My father stood with his arms crossed, his large frame blocking the light from the house. He was a man built of disappointment, and I was his finest work. "I just don't see it, Cassidy," he said, his voice flat, devoid of the anger I might have fought against. It was worse. It was resignation. "This isn't you. It's a phase. You're not cut out for that world." Liam, ever his echo, stood just behind him, younger but already perfecting his look of sympathetic condescension. "He's right, Cass. It's not a game. People get hurt. You're sensitive." Sensitive. The word landed like a stone. It was their code for weak, because I read books instead of playing football, because I preferred the quiet of the woods to the noise of their parties, because I felt things deeply. They assumed I felt them weakly. They saw my stillness as fragility, my thoughtfulness as hesitation. I looked at the oil stain on the floor, a dark, iridescent map of nowhere. I could have argued. I could have screamed. I could have listed all the ways they were wrong, pulled out the recruiter's pamphlets, my acceptance letters, the proof that someone, somewhere, believed in me. I had the words. I had the fire. But I looked at their faces, 2 closed doors, and I understood. They weren't trying to protect me. They were trying to define me. They were building a cage and calling it a home. So I chose silence, not because I agreed, but because I knew, with a certainty that felt like the first truly solid thing in my life, that their opinion was irrelevant to the outcome. My future would not be a debate. It would be a fact. "Okay," I said. The word was small, swallowed by the cavernous garage. I picked up my duffel bag, the strap digging into my shoulder. I walked past them, out of the garage, and into the biting November air, and I did not look back. That was the last time we spoke of my career. They assumed my silence in the years that followed was shame. They heard I'd left Newport and assumed it was a retreat. They filled in the blanks with a story that fit their world. The girl who tried and failed. The sensitive daughter who finally came to her senses. The truth was messier and quieter. The truth was officer candidate school, a crucible of frozen mornings and screaming instructors designed to shatter you into your component parts and see what was worth rebuilding. They were right about one thing. I was sensitive. I was acutely sensitive to the subtle shift in an instructor's tone, to the exhaustion in the man's eyes next to me on a 20-mile ruck march, to the precise angle of the sun that meant we were almost done. I turned my sensitivity into a weapon. It became observation, perception. After my commission, I didn't go to the fleet. I was filtered into the esoteric, shadowy world of naval intelligence. My world became sterile rooms without windows, lit by the blue glow of monitors displaying signals intercepted from half a world away. It was learning languages spoken only in whispers, studying patterns of life in places I would never visit, trying to predict the violent thoughts of men I would never meet. It was lonely, a profound, aching loneliness that settled deep in my bones. While Liam was getting his MBA and my father was bragging about his son, the future CEO, I was in a different kind of school. I was learning that a single misplaced comma in a translated document could mean the difference between a successful mission and a black-draped coffin. I learned that praise was a quiet nod from a superior officer whose name I was not cleared to know. Success was silence. It was an explosion that didn't happen. A team that came home. My first deployment was not to a ship. It was to a dust-choked compound in a country my parents couldn't place on a map. I was the intelligence officer attached to a SEAL team. My job was to be the voice in their ear, the eyes that saw what they could not. I lived in their world, but was not fully of it. I didn't carry the same rifle, but I carried the weight of their lives in every piece of data I analyzed. I remember one night, sitting in the dimly lit TUS, the Tactical Operations Center, my eyes burning from staring at a drone feed for 12 straight hours. The team was moving through a village, the green and black thermal images of their bodies ghost-like on my screen. My job was to listen to the chatter, to watch for movement, to feel the rhythm of the night and know when it was wrong. A voice crackled in my headset, the team leader's, calm and low. "Oracle, you seeing anything?" Oracle, that was my call sign. Not Cassidy, not Brennan, just a name for a function. I scanned the rooftops, the alleyways. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. A dog had been barking on the edge of the village for hours. It had just stopped. The silence it left behind was a hole in the soundscape. "Stand by," I murmured, my heart a slow, heavy drum against my ribs. I rewound the drone footage, my fingers flying across the keyboard. There, a flicker of movement in a third-story window 2 minutes ago. Not a civilian. A civilian would have been curious, would have stayed at the window. This was a quick peek, a professional peek. "Contact, third story, northeast corner of your target building," I said, my voice steady, betraying none of the adrenaline flooding my system. 2 minutes ago, the dog just went quiet. I don't like it. The team melted into the shadows. They changed their approach. They found the sniper waiting for them. They came home. All of them. Later, back at the compound, the team leader, a master chief with eyes that had seen the very worst of the world, found me by the coffee pot. He was a giant of a man, covered in dust, and the grim patina of his work. He just looked at me for a moment, then gave a short, sharp nod. "Good call, Oracle," he said, and that was it. That nod was worth more than any praise my father had ever given me. It was a currency of pure, undiluted respect, earned in the place where lies and bravado go to die. I built a life out of those moments. I rose through the ranks. Lieutenant, lieutenant commander, then commander. The promotions came quietly, the ceremonies small and private. My world was classified. My successes were secrets. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding it, but because it was mine. It was a language they no longer spoke, from a country they would never understand. Explaining it would have been like trying to describe the color blue to a man born blind. So I let them have their story, the prodigal daughter who worked some vague government job in D.C. Safe, simple, a little sad. It was easier. I only came back this year for my grandmother. Her hands, which were once strong enough to knead dough and pull weeds from her garden, now trembled when she lifted her water glass. Her eyes had a new, fragile clarity. She had asked me to come, her voice thin over the phone, and it was a request I could not refuse. So I put in the leave request, packed a civilian bag, and drove the 6 hours north, back into the world I had escaped. Walking through the front door was like stepping into a pocket of stalled time. The same grandfather clock ticking in the hall, the same faint scent of lemon polish and old books. But the air was heavier now, thick with the weight of things unsaid. My shoulders instinctively tightened, my posture shifting into a defensive brace I hadn't realized I'd lost. I took a slow, controlled breath, a 4-count inhale, a 4-count hold, a 4-count exhale, a technique for managing stress under fire. It felt absurd to use it here, surrounded by floral wallpaper and family portraits, but the tension in the room was a pressure vessel, and my brother was tapping on the gauge. Now, at the dinner table, he delivers the final blow. He turns to his girlfriend, Amelia, a kind-looking woman with an easy smile who deserves better than this family. "Honestly, it's for the best," Liam says, shaking his head with a theatrical sigh. "She's just not built for that kind of pressure. Better to find out early, you know?" He finally glances at me, a flicker of something, pity, triumph, in his eyes. He expects me to look away, to shrink. He expects the quiet, sensitive girl he remembers. I meet his gaze. I don't smile. I don't frown. I hold his stare, my expression a perfect, calm neutral. I learned long ago that the most unnerving thing you can do to an opponent is nothing. Let them fill the silence with their own insecurities. His bravado falters for a split second, a flicker of doubt, then it's gone, buried under a lifetime of practiced superiority. He is about to say something else, to twist the knife a little deeper, when the doorbell rings. Its chime cuts through the thick atmosphere. My mother gets up, dabbing her lips with her napkin. "Oh, that must be Amelia's father. He was held up in traffic." A new wave of performative hospitality washes over the room. My father stands, ready to greet the newcomer. Liam puffs out his chest, ready to impress his girlfriend's dad. I take a slow sip of my water, the cool liquid a small anchor in the rising tide of family drama. I hear the greetings in the hall, a deep, resonant voice that carries an echo of command. My mother leads him in. "Everyone, this is Admiral James Peterson, Amelia's father. Jim, this is my husband, Robert, our son, Liam, and our daughter, Cassidy." I turn my head slightly. He's tall and lean, with silver hair and a face etched with the kind of authority that time does not diminish. He wears a blazer and slacks, but he moves as if he's still in uniform. A retired 3-star, I guess, from his bearing. He shakes my father's hand, then Liam's, his smile polite but formal. His eyes scan the room, the practiced assessment of a man used to sizing up a situation in seconds. Then his eyes land on me, and everything changes. It's not a dramatic, sudden movement. It's a subtle shift, but it's as profound as a change in barometric pressure before a storm. The polite civilian smile vanishes from his face. His posture, already straight, snaps into something more rigid, more formal. His gaze sharpens, a flicker of disbelief followed by instant, ingrained recognition. He sees me, not the disappointing sister or the quiet daughter. He sees the uniform that isn't there. He sees the rank on my collar. Admiral James Peterson stops dead. He pulls himself to his full height. In the middle of my mother's dining room, surrounded by porcelain and half-eaten turkey, he stands at attention. The room freezes. The soft clinking of silverware stops. The low hum of conversation dies. The only sound is the heavy ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall, counting down the seconds of my brother's life. The Admiral's voice is not loud, but it cuts through the silence with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. It is laced with a deference that is utterly, shockingly out of place. "Commander Brennan," he says, his eyes locked on mine. He gives a short, formal nod of his head, the civilian equivalent of a salute. "I had no idea you would be in attendance. It's an honor." "Commander Brennan." The two words detonate in the quiet of the room. I watch the shockwave travel across the table. My mother's hand flies to her mouth, her eyes wide with confusion. My father's face drains of all color, leaving behind a pale, slack-jawed mask of disbelief. Amelia is looking back and forth between her father and me, a million questions forming in her eyes. And Liam, my brother, who had just been explaining how I wasn't built for pressure, chokes on his wine. It's not a delicate cough. It's a wet, strangled, sputtering gasp as the Merlot he was swishing with such arrogance tries to fill his lungs. He lurches forward, coughing violently, his face turning a shade of crimson that clashes horribly with the burgundy tablecloth. I remain perfectly still, my hands resting in my lap. I incline my head slightly toward the Admiral. "Sir," I say, my voice calm and even, "the honor is all mine. Please, have a seat." It's the only thing I say. It's the only thing I need to say. The rest of the dinner passes in a blur of surreal, suffocating tension. The Admiral, a man of impeccable manners, tries to make polite conversation, but the damage is done. My family is a tableau of shell-shocked survivors. My father can't look at me. My mother keeps starting sentences, and then stopping, her train of thought derailed. And Liam is silent. For the first time in his life, he has absolutely nothing to say. He just stares at his plate, occasionally stealing a bewildered, terrified glance at me, as if I've suddenly grown a second head. I eat my turkey. I compliment my mother on the stuffing. I am an island of calm in the wreckage. Later, as people are gathering their coats, Liam corners me in the hallway by the grandfather clock. His face is pale now, his earlier bravado completely gone, replaced by a raw, floundering confusion. "Commander?" he whispers, the word sounding alien and clumsy on his tongue. "He called you Commander?" I look at him. I see the little boy who used to follow me into the woods, before he learned that the world valued noise over substance. I see the man who built his own confidence by tearing down mine. I feel a flicker of something, not pity, but a deep, weary sadness for the years we've lost to his fiction. "Why?" he asks, his voice cracking. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" I think of all the reasons, all the nights spent in windowless rooms, the quiet nods of respect, the weight of the secrets I carried, the life I built for myself, brick by silent brick. "You never asked," I say, and the truth of it is as simple and as sharp as a shard of glass. "You were too busy telling me who I was." He flinches, as if I've struck him. He opens his mouth, then closes it. There is nothing to say. The story he told himself for a decade has just been redacted, blacked out, by a single undeniable fact. I step around him. My grandmother is waiting by the door. I go to her and wrap her in a careful hug, breathing in the familiar scent of lavender and mothballs. She squeezes my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Her eyes, clouded with age, are clear with a deep, unwavering pride. She never needed a rank or a title to see me. She always knew. I say my goodbyes. They are quiet and brief. I walk out the front door, back into the cold November night. The air feels different now, lighter. The strap of my bag feels comfortable on my shoulder. I get in my car and start the engine, the quiet hum a welcome sound. I don't look back at the house, at the warm lights in the windows and the ghosts trapped behind the glass. The reveal was never for them. It was never about proving them wrong. Their validation was a mountain I had stopped trying to climb a long, long time ago. The Admiral's recognition wasn't a victory. It was merely an intersection, a moment where my world and theirs, briefly, violently, overlapped. The truth did not need my defense. It just needed air. The rank, the title, the uniform hanging in my closet back in Virginia. They were symbols, markers on a map they could never read. The real achievement was forged in silence, in the lonely hours before dawn, in the quiet confidence of knowing your own worth when no one else is there to affirm it. The truth survived, and so did I.